It is 12:54 in the afternoon, which means World of Warcraft Shadowlands comes out in approximately 4 hours. So in the meantime, I'm making this video. You saw the title, How to Lie Truthfully or Honestly on your resume. And now before you get all up on your high horse, oh, Josh is going to teach us how to lie today. This is terrible. We're talking about lying on a resume, not a background check. So before the video gets started, just realize those are two very, very different things. First of all, let me say, a system that doesn't reward honest behavior should not expect honest conduct. If you want people to be honest on their resumes and in their interviews, don't punish them for it. Every time you're honest on your resume, you're usually punished for it. Job gaps, employers are like, let's continue that trend. Every time you're honest, employers find a way to find that as reasoning that there's something wrong with you and not looking at it as a show of good character that you're being truthful with them. In this case, honesty is in fact not always the best policy. But if you want to be honest, Abe, go right ahead and enjoy being jobless. I'll be over here feeding my family. Here is a list of ways that companies can lie to you. The job description. Companies can list a job description with what you'll be doing every day and then completely change it when you get the job. Have you ever seen other duties as assigned as a bullet point, as something you'll be doing? That basically means they can just make you do whatever it is. You're a senior front-end engineer. Well, today you're doing marketing. Well, today looks like you're managing social media. Another way they can lie to you is a job title. Companies can promise a title and actually never give it to you. Companies like to hold job titles over your head like they mean something, when in reality they don't. Job titles are just something that a company gives to you based on what they think that they should pay you. Pay and bonuses and other potential forms of compensation that companies can promise you. If you do this, if you work overtime, we'll give you an extra 2 weeks, and then that never happens. Or, we were gonna do profit sharing this quarter, but that didn't happen. And then the next year goes by. And promotions, companies can promise you a promotion month after month after month and just never give it to you. Unlimited PTO. This is actually a meme, because unlimited PTO just means that they don't have to pay out 2 weeks vacation if they fire you, because you never really had 2 weeks of vacation built up to begin with. Companies can promise you a mentor and never actually give you a mentor to teach you what the heck you're supposed to be doing at your job. Companies can promise you an office budget and never actually give it to you. Need new equipment to do your job? They said they'd give it to you, right? And that never happens. Companies that have a pension when you get hired can eliminate it after you get hired. Flexible schedule. This doesn't actually mean it's flexible for you, it means it's flexible for them. This doesn't mean you can come in earlier and leave earlier. This means you can flex into the weekend and work Saturdays and Sundays too. Perks like video games and pool and foosball tables and lunch, and they can remove that at any time. But on the job application, again, they can list this like it's something that's never going to change. Team get-togethers. They're not optional, even if they say they are. Companies can lie to you about the duration of your job. They can post a job and make it look very permanent, and if you get that job, that's the salary you're gonna get. But in reality, as soon as you finish the task that they really hired you to do, they're just going to fire you and let you go. All right, so that was a list of ways that companies can lie to you about your job after you get the job or before you get the job. If companies can lie about how awesome the job is, then the least that we can do as applicants is lie about how qualified we are to do it. The first question I'd like to propose is, if we change things on our resume or remove things from our resume, is that lying or is it selective disclosure? I'd almost argue that changing things on your resume actually makes you more honest. For example, let's talk about job titles. People lose their mind over their job titles, and if that was my job title, that's what I have to put on my resume. Let me ask you the question, how many people have gotten a job that has a job title, but you end up doing something completely different? Let's say you're a front-end engineer, but most of your job is doing back-end engineering. Well, that sounds pretty full stack to me. If you change that on your resume from the title that they gave you at the job, from front-end engineer to full stack engineer, is that lying? I'd actually say that's more honest in that it reflects what you can actually do. The next job you're applying to is full stack, but your last job title was front-end engineer. Is it wrong to apply to it and say that you're a full stack engineer? Because that's what you were actually doing at your last job. And again, I think it's more accurate, and I think it shows that you're a better match for the job. Or even this, why not make your title software engineer or software developer? Why pick a niche? Why let companies pigeonhole you into something that may or may not really show what you can do? The next thing I'd like to talk about is the skill set on your resume. Let's say there's a job post and it says you need to know C++, which you don't really know, but after reading the job post and you read the description, you realize this is actually mostly web development and has nothing to do with C++. But on your resume, you don't actually list C++ as a skill, but that's a requirement for this job. If you put C++ on your resume and say that you know it so that you can apply to the job and get to the interview, is that lying? No. In my opinion, it's not really lying, because who gets to decide when you know a skill well enough to put it on your resume? The employer doesn't get to decide that. You get to decide that. You could look at something for 2 minutes and put it on your resume and list it as a skill. You're just not going to be very skillful at it. Your skill may not be able to do what the company wants, but that doesn't mean that you're not skillful in it at all. It just means that you don't know the parts well enough that they want you to do their job. So if you're missing skills and you think you can learn them well enough, or they're unrelated and you need them to move on with the job application, just put them on your resume. The whole point here is that if you don't put it on your resume, you're not going to get to the interview. The whole point of this video is that you do whatever it takes to get to the interview, and then you're honest in the interview. Because if you're honest up front, you'll never make it to the interview to explain context and the subtleties of your life about what's going on. The next section I want to talk about is internships on your resume. Internships versus entry-level jobs versus junior-level position. Here's a fact. They're all the same in terms of skill set. The difference? Internships are inherently temporary, usually over the summer, or they're part-time, and they pay almost no money in comparison to a full-time entry-level or a full-time junior-level position. That's really it. If you take internship, the title, off of your resume, is that lying? No, it's just not telling them the duration of it and the pay of it, because as soon as you put intern on your resume, they know that it was a temporary position and that you were probably getting paid no money for the opportunity to work there. Why do they need to know that your last job was temporary, and why do they need to know that you were paid lower than what an entry-level job would pay? Probably because they can lowball you. At my very first engineering job, we had people with master's degrees doing internships, getting paid about $20 an hour. And they were hoping to get an offer that was full-time. And then there was me, with a bachelor's degree, fresh out of college. I applied directly to the job. I had a lower level of education, and I just skipped the internship section completely. I got the entry-level job full-time, and I got paid more than double what they got paid, because I refused to take an internship. Because the difference in skill of an internship and a junior level is nothing. You're both clueless when you start. You're gonna be clueless after the internship or before the internship. You're gonna be clueless before your first entry-level job and a little bit after your entry-level job. The difference in skill is negligible, but the difference in pay is huge. And that's what that one little item on your resume does. It lets them know that you are okay with taking less money. The next section I'd like to talk about on your resume are for people that are freelancers and that are self-employed, but really they're just trying to use that to cover up their unemployment. This is really a giant red flag for employers, and it's really easy to see, you know? They're gonna be like, oh, so you're a freelancer, right? You're a CEO. Then why do you need our job? That's what they're gonna think. So when you put that on your resume, it doesn't make a lot of sense, because think about it from their perspective. You need money? Well, why don't you just work harder at your business? Oh, your business is not really working out? Well, that doesn't really make you look good as a candidate to work for them, now does it? So on your resume, instead of putting freelancer or self-employed, CEO, owner, whatever it is, you want to put the company name, and then underneath it, you would put whatever title you would be if you were an employee of the company. Be sure to use this in a way that applies to the company that you're trying to get into. So like if you're doing marketing at your own company and you're applying to a marketing position, well then put that you were doing marketing at your company. Don't put that you were the owner of the company. Make yourself work for yourself, not the owner, okay? Not the freelancer. If you're applying to a dev job, well then put that you're a developer for your own company. And technically, you don't actually have to make an LLC or a corporation or anything like that, although you should for the legal protections that you get from LLCs, but technically you don't have to. You can put whatever business name you want, and at least in the United States you would be known as what's called a sole proprietor, an individual person, a pass-through entity. But that's what you do for self-employed. The next thing that we're going to look at on these resumes that gets a lot of people is job gaps. Now, this is probably, well, it's absolutely the most controversial part of this video because job gaps are verifiable on a background check, right? So again, don't lie on the background check. They can see when you started your last job. They can see when you ended your last job. So if you take the dates on your resume and you extend them out so it doesn't show a job gap, they're going to be able to see that. However, when does the background check actually happen? Well, typically the background check actually happens when you get a job offer or when you're just about to get a job offer. It happens later down the line. It doesn't happen up front because it costs them money and they don't have time to do this for every single candidate who just applies to the job. So here's what I would do. If you think that you can change the dates on your resume and expand them across your gap, just so that you can get to the interview and then explain your current job gap situation, then do it. Because chances are that you just might be able to convince them that your job gap doesn't matter because you're just such a perfect match for the job. Because a job application isn't the law, and people are free to change their requirements at any time. Companies can say, we want this, and then as you get further down the interview, they can say, actually, we want this instead. Always consider that they can change what they're hiring for mid-interview process. If you put a job gap on your resume and you're honest Abe again, you will not get that opportunity to explain your situation of why. You will not get that opportunity to explain why you are the perfect candidate for this position despite your job gap. You will just not get the time of day to talk about any of these things if you're honest upfront. So what I'm asking you to consider here is that you break some of the rules, because this is not breaking the law. Right? You're not signing an oath to a background check or anything like that. You're just applying to a job so that you can get to the interview. Break some of the rules, some of the social stigmas, not the law, just the rules. Break the rules. Social stigmas. This is an example of breaking a social stigma. People think they have to check every box on the requirements list for job applications, and you check it anyways when you don't actually have them. That's breaking the rules, right? You need to do these things to get a job in 2020 and probably for the foreseeable future. The next section I want to talk about is the education section. This is one of those things, again, that can be verified on a background check. If you say you have a degree and you don't have a degree, they're going to see that. However, if the job says that you need to have a bachelor's degree to do it and you don't have one, I would still say yes that I have it and try to get to the interview anyways. And then when you get to the interview, say, I actually don't have a bachelor's degree, but you were impressed with my code tests, and I've really been pleased overall with this company, and you guys seem to be pleased with me. Is there any way we could maybe waive that educational requirement? Because they can. They can change it anytime they want at any point in the interview process. But people just don't consider that. So overall, the TLDR of this video is, if you think you can do the job, apply to the job. If you think that you can learn to do the job, apply to the job. If you really just like that job or that company and you really want to get into it, even though you're not you don't meet the requirements, apply for it. Resumes are not background checks. They are a way to start a conversation so that then you can prove who you are and what you can do. Your resume is not the interview, it is the ticket to the interview. The interview is where the honesty happens, where the actual conversation happens. Obviously, don't lie on background checks, but do everything you can to get to the interview. So many people think that resumes are just a list of what they've done. But it's also, again, what they can do for whoever they're applying to. It's not just a receipt. But that's really all I have for you in this video. I hope it has motivated some of you to kind of push the boundaries here, break some rules, do things that people will tell you not to do, and that's bad, and oh, I will never lie for this and that, and more power to those people. But if you're like me and you're in circumstances where you got bills to pay and families to feed, you got to do what you got to do, and I don't think there's any shame in that. I'd do it again, and I'd do it again because it's about what I can do, not just stupid requirements on a resume. one thing I'd like you to consider before we end this video here is think about if everyone in college and code boot camps and wherever is told to apply to the job and study for the job the exact same way, how do you stand out? I mean, you're just gonna have to go ahead and get in line with everyone else because everyone's doing the same thing, they're taught the same thing. How do you stand out? How do you look like a better candidate? So my advice for you in life is that going forward, look for what everyone else is doing and go the other way. That's all I have for you in this video. I appreciate you. I'll probably be no-lifing some Shadowlands later, maybe on Twitch. You can go follow me on there. I have some links in the description that support the channel. If you like this video, please share it, click thumbs up, and click subscribe. Leave a comment, not for the algorithm, of course. And I'll see you guys in the next one.